Welcome to the Backyard Composting and Recycling class. I'm Jim Converse. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for Commonwealth. I also run the farmers market and do a lot of other neighborhood improvement events around here too. We're going to start out talking a little bit about backyard composting and what composting is and how you can make it. I have right here one of the compost, we call this an R2D2. This is one of the compost bins that we got from the green team. These are distributed at workshops there. It's got a nice big lid to shovel materials into it. And then it's got a little trap door here on the side that when it gets full, you can open this and shovel the stuff out and back into the top again. They're quite handy for backyard work. You could also make one of your own. A lot of people use pallets and just nail 4 pallets together in a frame. And that makes a really nice compost bin also. So you don't need to spend money on it. And if you are going to make it out of pallets and bins, it's good to make 3 separate containers. One for fresh compost that you add things into, one for stirring and mixing it for a while, and then a third to put the finished compost in. So you have a row of like 3 bins together. There's a variety of ways to do that. A lot of those things are available online if you just Google composting and composting bins. One of those that's really pretty good. It shows a compost bin with all of the work in it. And this bin here has doors that open. Ours has a top for filling, then it has a bottom that you can shovel the compost out of to stir it. And what works best with that is shoveling out of the bottom and putting it right back on top again. And that way it aerates and gets good soil in with it. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail as we go along then. And one of the questions is, why do we do compost in the first place? And everybody has their own answer for that. And once you get comfortable with it, you'll be able to come up with answers that make sense to you and fit the ways that you try to do it. One of the things we're really interested in is getting household waste into compost instead of into the landfill. And it's estimated that up to 35 to 40% of the waste that goes into landfills is household waste. And the problem with that, besides throwing away good things that could become nutrients, is that it also causes methane gas release as it decomposes. And up to 40% of the methane gas that goes into the atmosphere is from spoiling waste in the landfill. So not only are you losing the nutrient value, you're adding to methane gas, which is a really potent component in global warming. It's much more of a contributor to global warming than even is CO2. So anything we can do, to help reduce the CO2 element in the atmosphere is really important. And as far as how you go about composting, there are a variety of ways to do it. We also have 2 larger bins called earth tubs over behind the incubator. We use those for all of the incubator vegetable waste, so it gets made into compost, which then goes in to fertilizer for the raised beds that we have over there behind the incubator. Some of the things to avoid in composting are letting it get too dry. It should be moist enough so you can squeeze it in your hand and have it feel slightly moist. If water runs out, it's probably too wet. But if it clumps nicely, then that means you have about the right amount of moisture in it. So you need to have access to water to put on with your compost when it gets dried out. It's good to use rainwater because the city tap water includes chlorine, and that can help some plants not grow as well as they should. So there are a lot of ways to make a rain barrel. You can just set a barrel into one of the downspouts on your house if you have it, or you can find out other ways to collect rainwater. As far as enriching your garden soil, the compost can be added on as a fertilizer and as a mulch. Most of the soils here in this area have a lot of clay content, and mixing in compost really loosens up the soil. It makes it what's called more friable, meaning it's more lumpy and not just a big solid clump of clay that is growing in. And it's really like getting free fertilizer, to do that. And a lot of people are now trying to think through ways to reduce the carbon imprint and the demand on fossil fuels. And one of the main components in chemical fertilizer is oil and natural gas and petrochemical things. So as much as you can move over to compost, not only do you get it free, but you also take off the pressure on the petrochemicals. And as far as how to use kitchen scraps for compost, one of the efforts to reduce food waste is don't buy as much to begin with. I tell people, like, when you waste 40% of your food by leaving it in the fridge too long or forgetting about it, or you push it in the back and it spoils, it's like you go to the grocery store and buy 5 bags of groceries and you just leave 2 of them in the parking lot and take 3 home. You would think that was really dumb economics, but that's basically what we're doing when we throw away about 40% of our stuff. Greens, many people buy more greens than they really are going to use, and when they turn a little bit rough, nobody likes to eat stale greens. So they are one of the main things that goes into the trash. They can go into the compost, and they're quite good because they're light and fluffy and they mix in well with the compost. Also, these are squash. If it gets too ripe or goes away, you can put the squash in the compost too. These are ones that we dried here, so they're still edible. But you can also dry them and save them if you catch them in time. But if they get too far gone, then they're good candidates for compost also. And it's handy to keep a small container under your sink. If you may want to get one that has a lid on it. It can get moldy sometimes if you forget about it. Some people do that and they, whoops, there it is. But it's still, the mold doesn't hurt the compost. It can still go into the compost bin too. The compost bin like this, or even a wood bin, it's good to put like a wire mesh frame underneath it, because groundhogs and rats and other things will burrow up into it, and they'll eat a lot of your food. Plus, they're just a real nuisance and a pest in the neighborhood. So to start out with, put like a wire mesh thing underneath this, and then in the bottom, put a layer of leaves or a layer of wood chips, or you can also tear up cardboard, but that you need a carbon amount of about 3 parts of carbon to 1 part of green materials that you put in. So you put down that layer on the bottom first, then you put on a layer of household waste, onion peels, anything left over from cooking, or even leftover food. But stay away from oils or meats or bones and things. They're not good to have in with your compost. So it's mainly a vegetable byproducts kind of product that you put into it. And once you put in 1 layer of brown material in the bottom, then a layer of vegetables, then you put another layer of either leaves or wood chips or other brown material on top. And you just layer it that way till you get a fairly full bin. And then about every week and a half, you shovel out from the bottom into the top, so it rotates and gets more oxygen mixed in with it. A big part of the composting fermentation process is having lots of oxygen available and having it be moist enough so it stays wet too. It takes probably up 2 months or so for it to totally rot down. So it's good to have a couple different bins going, so you can have one, after you get it going, you can have one to use for your garden and then one to just make the next batch of compost. And it doesn't hurt for it to sit over winter, but it won't ferment and make into compost as rapidly because it gets cold. When it's working its way through the fermentation process, the temperature should get up to 140 to 150 degrees inside. And you can stick a thermometer in and see if it's warm enough or not. If it's too cold, then it'll slow down and take longer to make into compost. But it doesn't get too warm, but the reason you want it to be that warm is it'll kill any weed seeds. Like tomatoes have seeds in them. If you throw in watermelon or other things, they all have seeds in them too. And you want it to be hot enough to kill off most of those seeds, or otherwise your compost bin itself becomes a garden and grows up a lot of different sprouts coming out of it. I wanted to talk a little bit about just general recycling information. The group that does the best work on recycling in Youngstown, Mahoning County Green Team, they're in what used to be the Southside Hospital. It's now called the Renaissance Center, and they are the place where you call to get a recycling bin, the yellow bins that you see sitting out with people's recycling. They have 11 different places around the city. So if you call them and then give them your address, they'll tell you where the closest place is where you can go pick up a recycling bin. They have a really good list on their website about what can be used for recycling and what can be thrown away. Some of the things that they talk about are they don't want corrugated cardboard, or they don't want pizza boxes that are greasy, or any non-food containers, styrofoam, etc. They will take glass, they will take milk cartons, juice cartons, and those kinds of things. they ask you to rinse them out first and then crush them before you put them in. Just in terms of recycling bins, as I said, they have them about 11 points around town, and you can get those from the green team. And on occasion, Kim Lewis, who is the main coordinator and educator for the green team, she will do workshops for 10 to 15 people if you schedule that in advance. So just check on the website for the green team of Mahoning County, and it will have the schedule so when those come up.